Hi, everyone. This is Tom Bancroft, and I wanted to take a few minutes here to help you figure out how to make a plant list when you're out on a hike using Washington Wildflower Search. So you want to pull that up onto your phone, and we can take the steps through. First, I'm going to show you a few slides of 4 plants that were used for making the list here. These were based upon a trip that Stuart and I did up to the Sinalocan Valley in the Okanagan County, but it works for any place. So the 4 plants we're going to look at is Lewis flax, and we'll use the key to identify that and then save it to the plant list. We already know ponderosa pine. If you look at this, you can see it has 3 needles in a clump, so it's a pine. The 3 needles tell you that it's a ponderosa pine versus the other species. So we'll look this one up in a different way. And then we want to look up this lupin. Lupins are really difficult. I can't tell the species apart. I can get it to the lupin. And then at that point, we'll use a plant list to try to narrow the possibilities down. We can narrow this one down to probably one or the other of these 2 species. And then I want to show you an example where we knew what the species was, but it actually didn't pop up because it didn't happen to have that for that geographic location in the Washington Wildflower Search. That's a really rare thing. In 4 years of using this app, this is the only time it ever came up for me, but I just thought I'd highlight that. So if you look at Washington Wildflower Search and pull that up, and then if you click on this information tab right here, you'll see this list of things, including using a plant list, which will give you directions that I'm about ready to go over, and then view the plant list, which we'll take a look at. And then we want to set the time and place, and you go into this just underneath this button on here. There's a time and place setting. You go in there and you set the GPS and you set the location, and it should automatically set it to where you are. We'll do that by hand here in order to see how that all works. All right. Okay, so this is one of the plants, and we're going to work through this, and I'm going to demonstrate how to do that actually on the Washington Wildflower Search. So let's see if we can change screens. Okay, here's my phone, and so we've got it loaded up. We're going to go into Washington Wildflower Search, which is this button right down here. So we'll go into that, and then we reset it here. So it's reset, and let's actually go back into here and reset this. So we turn the GPS off, reset that. Let's go back. So you can see it shows 3,379 plants. Now what I want to do is I want to go up to where Stuart and I were in the Okanagan Highlands. So we'll go up here and drag this down to the Tonaskus area. We're going to set this to the first week in June because we just came back a few days ago. 1,500 feet is good for that. So we're set that and come back to here. Now, if you look under info there, you can see there's the using plant list, which will give you the directions. But I thought I'd go over this, seeing how it took me several trips before I remembered to read the directions and figure out how to do this all. But if you go back in, view plant list, you can see here's my list of plant lists. We'll come back to the Sinalocan one. Right now, we want to create a new plant list, and we'll call this new plant list that comes up like that, but we want to rename that. So let's call this demonstration list. And we want to have it set to that demonstration list with that check mark. So now we go back to the beginning. All right, so we want to remember that first flower, we were to key that out. So it's a wildflower. It was kind of bluish. It had 5 petals. It was about an inch across, so we're click that inch there. You could keep going and add more things if you knew them, but that's good enough for now. Then we go in there and we get our list. And now we have to scroll down through this list looking for the plant that we were trying to identify. Here it is, the Lewis's flax. We pull up Lewis's flax, it will give you a photograph you can look at. It will give you some additional photographs below it. You can go into the descriptions part and read about it. That might be helpful in identification. The map will show you where it is thought to be in Washington, and so that's showing the counties in Washington and Oregon, actually, and where it is. And then all of those little dots represent where individuals that are in some of the museums have been found. We're up in this upper corner, so it is there. Let's go back to the photos, and then we want to go back to the beginning part here. All right, how do you add this into your list? So we've got all of our plants here. We figured it out. It's this flax one. So you put your finger on there and you flick it to the left, and then you get this logging system. You can log it just straight in to and demonstration list. It's telling you what list you're logging it to. Log it in demonstration list. Or if you wanted to add a comment, you can add a comment here. Lots of them blooming. And it would add that in there. So that is basically how you do it. Now let's go back to the beginning here and reset this. And the second plant we were going to look at is ponderosa pine. We already knew it was ponderosa pine. We don't need to key that out. So you've got your 1,601 plants that are in this area. You simply type in ponderosa. And there you go. You got ponderosa pine. You flick it to the left, log that in. You've got that logged in there. All right. Now we flick on, go back. You've got still our 1,600 plants. Now we think it was a lupin, right? Our third plant was a lupin, and we knew that just by looking at that. So we call this up and we say lupin, and we hit return, and we get our list of lupins. And oh my God, do we have a long list of lupins? And lupins are really tough. So now what do? How do you figure that out? Okay, if you have a plant list that you've gotten from Washington Native Plant Society, then that's going to give you a narrowed down set. And so let's go over and look at that right now real quick here. So we pull up our list. So here is the list that I downloaded from Washington Native Plant Society, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. And this list was created in 2003, and it has a huge number of plants on it. So we're looking for lupin. Now I downloaded it, so everything was ordered within families. You can download it just straight in alphabetical order. There's several ways to download. We'll look at that real quickly here in a minute, but we want to go find the Fabaceae, which is the group that has the lupins, and you can see it only lists 3 lupins here. And so now you're going back to our list and figure out what do we have, because we've got it now narrowed down to just 3. Okay, so we narrow it down to just 3, and silky lupin and velvet lupin were 2 of them. And then I think the other one was the big leaf lupin down here. It was definitely not the big leaf lupin, because you can see that leaf is very different from the leaf that we had on the plant. So it's one or the other of those. Now what do? Because you can't enter lupin species, which is what I would keep on my list, how I'm going to label this particular photograph in my data file, because I'm not sure which it is. Another way you could do it is you could say it's one or the other of these 2 species. So maybe in terms of your list, just for remembering, you want to say, well, I think it's it's either the silky or the velvet. It's either the silky or the velvet. So we'll record both of them in our list. And there you got them. Now they're both in the list. Okay, let's go back to the beginning here. And we're still got our 1,600. So our 4th picture we had was a skyrocket, that red flower with the long tube. And if we type in skyrocket, We get nothing. We get nothing. Okay, what turns out is the Washington Wildflower Search doesn't realize that Skyrocket is up in that area. And it took me a long time to figure that out. Stuart confirmed it was Skyrocket. There was no question about that. So what I discovered is if you went back here and turned all of this off, so reset that to reset to turn it off. We have no location. You go back, you're back to your 3300. We can go in here and type Skyrocket. And there we have it. We could record it onto our list. So we have it now all recorded. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go up to the info. We want to view plant lists and we want to see our demonstration list. So we tap on that. We can then tap view demonstration list and there's our list of it. So it lists them all down. Now, what is neat is it will also keep the time and date if you're out in the field and doing this. It may not do it for me right here, right now. What do you do if you see something a second time and you can't remember whether you put it the first time? Just go ahead and enter it, because what it will do is it will keep multiple copies of that. So let's go back here. Now we can send this plant list to us. Oops, we did the wrong one. Delete draft. Okay, you can send it to the plantlist.org, which apparently then they will load it up into the database and start to add new stuff to it to help refine it. But we just want to send it to ourselves. So we click there, and then I enter my email address, and boom, now I've sent that to myself. Now let's go look at that plant list. But what I'm going to look at is the plant list that I actually did last week, and that's this plant list. So email it to me. It's the plant list for the Sinalocan, which I put together. And you can see it gives you the list, and it gives it in alphabetical order by scientific name. I can't figure out how to make it do it in any other way than that. But it also gives you a downloadable file, which is a space delimited file that you can upload into Excel. And if you're good with Excel, you can also then hook that up to a list of families and add the family names in there. I haven't figured out how to do that, but it is technically doable. So that gives you your plant list here. Now let's go and look and see where we get those plant lists. All right, so here's Washington Native Plant Society's website. And underneath the plants, there's plant lists. And you click on plant list, and then it's going to load up this map, and then you go into the respective county that you're looking for. So Sinalocan, all right, so you click on Okanagan, and then you get this whole list of plant lists for various places. We went all the way down to the Sinalocan here and looked at that. Now, there's different options for how you can load them. You can take them straight as a PDF or straight as a Word document, in which case they're going to have them ordered based upon the genus in alphabetical order. Or if you want to do them into family order, you click more options. And then over here, you can still have it coming out in various forms. Let's just click this one for tab delimited. And we want it done in families. We want it done with 3 columns. And then you click download. And then you can see I've now downloaded it. You can then load this up into a Excel spreadsheet. So let's go and see our Excel spreadsheet. Okay, I've actually uploaded a Word version of the Sinalocan that we just downloaded, and it has everything listed in family order. So the families and then the species under it. These are kind of the primitive plants. Then we'll do gymnosperms, which includes the pines and the cypress, then the dicots, and it's all done in alphabetical order based upon the scientific name for the family. And you can see it's a long list for this particular site with over 500 species. So let's just review a few things here. So again, we went into our our wildflower search, and we were able then to identify, to narrow down our plant list. We use that swipe to the left in order to get to log it in, and that worked pretty well. This is just a summary of going into that view plant list. You can click on this to send your plant list. This is how that plant list looked when I got it. And here's the Native Plant Society website. And again, you can go in and check out sites, check out lists there. Unfortunately, several of us are going to SWAC Discovery Trail. Unfortunately, there's not a list for that, but there is a list for Trouncin Ridge under Chelan, and that might be a good example to look on for that. Now, I also wanted to mention there's a number of these Wildflower Search. The group that put this together for Washington has put it together for lots of states, for all the states across the country. I also have Oregon Wildflower Search on mine and Pennsylvania Wildflower Search, because those are places I often go. But there's also one for Mount Rainier. Now, the nice thing about the Mount Rainier one is it's much smaller geographic area. So those squares, when you actually pick your site, go into a much smaller part of the park and allows you to really narrow your list down. So I'd recommend you get the Mount Rainier Wildflower Search before we head to Mount Rainier after the fourth talk. All right. So that's the quick overview of how to do this. Now, there's one other thing that I wanted to show you, and I will load this up. Okay, this is a list made where I downloaded it using that option of exporting it as a delimited file, loaded it into Excel, and then I used a separate file that Stuart had put together that gave both common names for the families and the scientific family name. And so I went in and added the common name, and then I happened to resort it by common name because I seem to remember those a little bit better. It takes some steps to do it. You need to have a little background in Excel, but this is a Trouncin Ridge, and I'll post this with the other things online here in case you want to just see how this one looks, as well as Stuart's list of families, the scientific names for families and the common names done in both orders, so you have that. So that's a quick overview of using Wildflower Search.